Michael Reynolds took a deep breath as he looked at himself in the mirror. His usual clean-shaved face now had 3 days of stubble. His neatly combed hair was hidden under an old baseball cap. The expensive suit he wore every day was replaced by worn jeans and a faded blue flannel shirt. No one would guess he was the CEO of American Motors, one of the biggest truck makers in the country. "Time to see how the other half lives," he said to himself as he grabbed the keys to his wife's small car. Michael had never gone to buy one of his own trucks as a regular person before. He always got the newest models delivered straight to him at the company. The idea came to him last week during a tense meeting. Sales were down for the 3rd time in a row. Customer happiness scores were the lowest they had been in 10 years. The board members were angry. They wanted answers. "The numbers do not lie," Sarah from marketing had said, showing charts with red arrows pointing down. "People are not happy with our trucks anymore." "But why?" Michael had asked. No one had a good answer. They only had guesses. That night, Michael could not sleep. His father had started American Motors 40 years ago with one belief: we do not just make trucks. We make trust. His father would be sad to see what was happening now. Michael pulled into the parking lot of Big Country Trucks, a dealer that sold only American Motors vehicles. It was a busy Saturday morning. Families walked around the lot looking at shiny new trucks. Salespeople in pressed shirts moved from customer to customer with wide smiles. Michael walked toward the main building. The front doors were big and made of glass. Inside, the showroom floor was bright and clean. 5 trucks sat under special lights. Each one was polished until it gleamed. Music played softly in the background. He walked up to the newest model, the Titan X3. Michael had approved the final design himself 1 year ago. He knew every part of this truck, from the engine to the special leather seats. His team had promised it would be the best truck they ever made. A young salesman walked up to Michael. His name tag said, Tony. Tony looked Michael up and down quickly. His smile got smaller when he saw the old clothes and dirty boots. "Just looking around today?" Tony asked in a bored voice. He clearly did not think Michael could afford any truck in the room. "I am interested in the Titan X3, Michael said. "I heard it has good towing power." Tony raised his eyebrows a little. "The Titan X3 is our top model. It starts at $50,000. He said this like he was telling a child they could not have candy. Michael nodded. "I know. Can you tell me about the engine?" Tony sighed. "It has a V8, good for towing." He did not say more. Michael knew that the engine had many special features. Tony had not mentioned any of them. "What about the warranty?" Michael asked. "Standard." Tony looked at his watch. "Did you want to test drive it?" "Yes, I would." Tony looked unhappy. "I need to see your license and run a credit check first." As Tony walked away with his license, Michael looked around more. 3 men in suits came in through a side door. One was Bill Thompson, the owner of the dealership. Michael had met him at company events. He quickly turned away and pretended to look at a truck brochure. Bill Thompson was talking loudly. "The new quotas are killing us. The factory is rushing these trucks out too fast. My repair shop is full of new trucks with problems." Michael felt his heart sink. Was this true? Were they making trucks too quickly? Before he could hear more, Tony came back. "Your credit check is fine. Let me get the keys for your test drive." His voice sounded surprised, like he had not expected Michael to pass the check. As they walked toward the door, a man in work clothes came in. He looked tired and angry. "I need to speak to a manager," the man said loudly. "This is the 3rd time my brand new Titan X3 has broken down this month." Tony looked at the angry customer and then back at Michael. "Wait here," he said quickly. "I need to handle this first." Michael nodded and watched as Tony rushed over to the angry man. The customer was waving his hands as he talked. His face was red with anger. Michael moved closer so he could hear what was happening. "This is the 3rd time this month," the angry man said. "3 times my truck stopped working on the road. I have a job to do. I cannot keep missing work because this truck keeps breaking down. I understand, sir, Tony said in a calm voice. Let me get the service manager for you. As Tony walked away, Michael decided to talk to the angry customer. He walked up to the man and said hello. Truck problems? Michael asked in a friendly way. The man looked at Michael and shook his head. Big problems. I bought this Titan X3 just 2 months ago. Brand new. Cost me nearly all my savings. Now it keeps dying on the road. What happens when it breaks down? Michael asked. He felt his stomach tighten. This was his company's newest truck model. The engine just stops. No warning. First time it happened, I was on the highway. Nearly caused a crash. The man wiped his forehead. Name is Frank, by the way. Frank Davis. Mike, Michael said, using his fake name. What did the service team say about the problem? Frank laughed, but there was no happiness in it. They said they cannot find anything wrong. They keep the truck for a day, then say it runs fine. But it happens again and again. I think they made a bad truck and do not want to admit it. Michael felt shame wash over him. If this was happening to one customer, how many others were having the same problem? What do you do for work? Michael asked. I deliver packages. Independent contractor. When my truck breaks down, I do not make money. And I still have to make payments on this truck. Just then, an older man in a shirt and tie walked up. His name tag said, Dave Miller, Service Manager. Mr. Davis, Dave said with a tired smile. Tony tells me you are having trouble again. Frank nodded. Same problem. Truck died while I was driving. Dave sighed. Bring it around to the service bay. We will look at it again. Again? Frank said loudly. You have looked at it twice already and found nothing. I need this fixed for good or I need a new truck. Sir, we cannot find any problem with your truck, Dave said. Each time we test it, everything works fine. Are you saying I am making this up? Frank was getting angrier. Michael decided to speak up. Maybe the problem only happens when the truck is being driven for a long time, or when it gets hot. Dave looked at Michael with surprise. And you are? Just another customer, Michael said. But I know a bit about engines. Dave turned back to Frank. We will run more tests this time. Keep it overnight. Frank shook his head. And how do I work tomorrow? We can loan you a truck, Dave offered. Fine, Frank said. But if this happens again, I want my money back. After Frank and Dave walked away, Tony came back to Michael. Sorry about that, Tony said. Some people expect too much from their trucks. Michael felt anger rise in his chest. Frank did not expect too much. He expected a truck that worked. That was what American Motors had always promised. Do you get many complaints like that? Michael asked. Tony shrugged. A few lately. Mostly with the newer models. Ready for that test drive now. As they walked to the Titan X3, Michael noticed something he had missed before. A small sign on the wall said, American Motors Quality Guarantee. Our trucks are built to last. His father had written those words 30 years ago. Michael wondered if those words were still true. When he started as CEO 5 years ago, he had pushed for faster production. More trucks meant more money. Had quality suffered because of his decisions? Tony opened the truck door. After you. Michael climbed into the driver's seat of the Titan X3. The leather felt cool against his back. The dashboard was covered in screens and buttons. It all looked good, but was it built well? Michael was starting to doubt it. This is our best truck, Tony said as he got in the passenger side. Top of the line everything. Michael turned the key. The engine started with a quiet roar. He had a lot to think about during this test drive. And a lot to learn. Michael drove the Titan X3 out of the dealership lot. Tony sat in the passenger seat, talking about the truck features. But Michael was not really listening. His mind was on Frank Davis and his broken truck. The engine has the most power in its class, Tony was saying. Great for towing heavy loads. How long have you worked here? Michael asked, changing the subject. About 6 months, Tony said. I used to sell cars at another place, but trucks have better pay. Do you like the trucks you sell? Michael asked. Tony paused. They look good. Nice features. Good for sales. Michael noticed that Tony did not say they were good trucks. He just said they were good for sales. There was a difference. Turn left at the next light, Tony said. We can take the highway and see how it handles at speed. Michael turned left, and soon they were on the open road. The truck did feel powerful. The ride was smooth. Everything seemed fine. So about those customer complaints, Michael said. The man back there was not the only one. Tony shifted in his seat. Look, every brand has some unhappy customers. You cannot please everyone. But his truck kept breaking down, Michael pressed. That seems like a real problem. Between you and me, Tony lowered his voice. The newer models have had some issues. They come out of the factory too fast. My manager says the company is rushing them to meet goals. Michael felt a chill. This was exactly what he had pushed for in board meetings. Faster production, more trucks, higher profits. What kind of issues? Michael asked. Engines cutting out, electrical problems, small stuff that adds up, Tony said. But hey, that is why we sell extended warranties. Michael gripped the steering wheel tighter. Extended warranties should not be the answer to poor quality. The trucks should work right from the start. Take this exit, Tony pointed. There is a dirt road where you can test the off-road features. Michael followed directions. Soon, they were on a bumpy dirt road that went up a small hill. The truck handled it well, at least for now. So if you were buying a truck for yourself, would you buy this one? Michael asked. Tony laughed. I could never afford this. But if I could. He stopped. Can I be honest with you? Please do, Michael said. I would buy a used model from 3 or 4 years ago, before they started rushing production. Those trucks were built better. They'd reached the top of the hill. Michael stopped the truck and looked out over the view. Fields stretched out below them. In the distance, he could see the factory. His factory. Smoke rose from its tall stacks. Trucks like this one rolled off the line every few minutes. My father had a Titan, Michael said quietly. The old model from 15 years ago. That truck ran for 300,000 miles. Never gave him a problem. Those were different times, Tony said. Companies cared more about making things right than making things fast. Michael knew that Tony was right, and the change had happened under his watch. When he became CEO, the company made fewer trucks, but they were better trucks. Then the board started pushing for growth. More sales, higher profits, and Michael had agreed. Ready to head back? Tony asked. Michael nodded. As they drove back toward the dealership, they passed a broken-down truck on the side of the road. It was another Titan X3, just like the one they were driving. A young man was looking under the hood with a confused face. Should we stop and help? Michael asked. Tony shook his head. Not our problem. Besides, he probably has roadside assistance. But it was their problem. Michael thought. Every broken truck was their problem. Every unhappy customer was their problem. He had forgotten that. As the dealership came into view, Michael made a decision. He needed to talk to more customers. He needed to hear more stories. And then he needed to fix what was broken. Not just the trucks, but the whole company. Back at the dealership, Michael parked the Titan X3 and handed the keys to Tony. What do you think? Tony asked, ready to talk about pricing. I need to think about it, Michael said. Mind if I look around a bit more? Tony tried to hide his disappointment. Sure. Take your time. I will be at my desk if you have questions. As Tony walked away, Michael noticed that Frank Davis was still at the service desk. He walked over to join him. Any luck with your truck? Michael asked. Frank shook his head. They say they need to keep it overnight. Gave me that loaner truck outside. He pointed to an older model Titan parked near the service bay. At least that one still runs right. Mind if I ask you some questions about your truck problems? Michael asked. I am thinking about buying one, but your experience makes me worried. Frank looked surprised that someone wanted to hear of his troubles. Sure. Not much else to do while I wait for paperwork. They walked outside and sat on a bench near the service area. Frank pulled out a small notebook from his pocket. I keep track of every problem, he said. Started the day after I bought it. Michael was impressed. This was exactly the kind of detailed information the company never saw. Customer complaints usually got filtered through dealers, then regional managers, then executives. By the time they reached his desk, they were just numbers on a report. The first problem happened 2 weeks after I bought it, Frank said. Engine just died while I was driving. No warning lights. Nothing. Just stopped working. What did they say when you brought it in? Michael asked. They said they could not find any problem. Said maybe I ran out of gas. Frank shook his head. My gauge showed half full. I am not stupid. Michael nodded. What happened next? It ran fine for 2 weeks. Then it happened again. This time, I was delivering packages in the city. Truck just died at a red light. Had to push it through the intersection. Frank showed Michael a page in his notebook. Second visit to the dealer. Again, they said no problem found. Michael felt sick. This was not just one small issue. This was a serious problem that kept happening. Third time was last week. Same thing. Truck died while driving. This time they replaced some sensor, but it did not help. And now today, it happened again. Frank closed his notebook. I cannot keep a job if my truck is not reliable. Have you talked to other Titan owners? Michael asked. The dealer gave me the number for customer service. I called them 3 times. They just kept saying they would look into it. No one ever called back. That hit Michael hard. He had cut the customer service team by 30% last year to save money. The remaining staff was overworked and could not keep up with calls. What will you do if they cannot fix it? Michael asked. Frank looked down at his hands. I still owe money on the truck. Cannot afford to just buy another one. My dad always said American Motors made the best trucks. That is why I bought one. Now I wish I had gone with a different brand. Those words felt like a punch to Michael. His father had built a company that people trusted. Now that trust was broken. I bought my first American Motors truck when my son was born. Frank continued. Wanted something safe and reliable. He is 17 now. Was saving to help him buy his first truck next year. Frank looked at the service bay where his truck was parked. Not going to be an American Motors now. Michael thought about all the families like Frank's who had trusted his company for years. Generations of loyal customers, all being let down by rushed production and poor quality. Just then, Dave, the service manager, walked out. Mr. Davis, Dave called. We found the problem with your truck. Bad wiring harness. It is a known issue with some models. Known issue. Frank stood up. If you knew about this problem, why did it take 4 breakdowns to fix it? Dave looked uncomfortable. The repair bulletin just came down from the factory yesterday. Michael knew this was not true. As CEO, he had seen that repair bulletin 3 weeks ago, but had delayed sending it to dealers. The replacement parts were expensive, and he wanted to wait until the next quarter to take the financial hit. This was his fault. All of it. Frank stared at Dave with anger in his eyes. 3 weeks I have been dealing with this. 3 weeks of missed work. And you are telling me you knew what was wrong all along. Dave took a step back. Not me personally. The company knew. We just got the information. Michael could not stay quiet any longer. This had gone too far. He stood up next to Frank. That is not acceptable, Michael said firmly. Not for a truck that costs this much money. Dave looked at Michael with surprise. Sir, as I explained to Mr. Davis, we just got the repair notice yesterday, and I am telling you that is not good enough. Michael said. How long will the repair take? 2 days, Dave said. We need to order the part. 2 more days without my truck. Frank shook his head. 2 more days without full pay. A small crowd had started to gather. Other customers and some staff watched the scene with interest. Michael noticed Bill Thompson, the dealership owner, walking toward them with a worried look on his face. Is there a problem here? Bill asked. Yes, there is, Michael said before Dave could answer. This man has a truck with a known defect. A defect the company has known about for weeks. And now he has to wait 2 more days for it to be fixed. Bill looked at Michael closely. For a moment, Michael worried that Bill might recognize him despite the baseball cap and stubble. But Bill just turned to Dave. What is going on here? He asked. Dave explained about Frank's truck and the wiring harness problem. Bill listened and then turned to Frank. Mr. Davis, I am sorry for your trouble. We will fix your truck at no cost to you. And we will give you a loaner until it is ready. He already has a loaner, Michael pointed out. What about the days of work he missed? The money he lost? Bill looked at Michael with annoyance. Sir, are you a lawyer? No, Michael said. Just someone who believes companies should stand behind their products. Bill sighed. Mr. Davis, I can offer you 3 free oil changes for your trouble. Frank laughed without humor. 3 oil changes. That does not even come close to what I lost. Michael had heard enough. What if he got a brand new truck? Same model but one that works properly. Everyone turned to look at Michael. Bill raised his eyebrows. Who exactly are you? Bill asked. Michael took a deep breath. This would end his undercover visit, but it was time. He took off his baseball cap and stood up straighter. My name is Michael Reynolds. I am the CEO of American Motors. The silence that followed was deep. Dave's mouth fell open. Tony, who had been watching from nearby, dropped his coffee cup. Bill Thompson looked like he had seen a ghost. Mr. Reynolds, Bill finally said, what are you doing here dressed like that? Learning some hard truths about my company, Michael answered. He turned to Frank. Mr. Davis, I want to personally apologize for what you have been through. It is completely unacceptable. Frank looked confused. You are the CEO of the whole company. Michael nodded. Yes, and everything you have experienced is ultimately my responsibility. Michael turned to Bill. Mr. Davis will receive a new truck tomorrow, the best model we make, and we will pay him for the workdays he missed. Bill nodded quickly. Of course, Mr. Reynolds. And that is just the start, Michael continued. I want to see all the repair records for the past 6 months. Every complaint, every broken truck. No filters, no summaries. The raw data. The crowd had grown larger. Staff members whispered to each other. Customers watched with interest. Sir, Bill said quietly, perhaps we should continue this conversation in my office. Michael shook his head. No. I have spent too much time in offices, looking at reports and charts. I need to see the real problems. He turned to the crowd. Is anyone else here having issues with their American Motors truck? Hands went up. More than Michael expected. His heart sank, but he knew this was important. I want to hear from all of you, he said. Every story, every problem. A middle-aged woman stepped forward. My truck makes a strange noise when I start it. Been that way since I bought it 3 months ago. An older man spoke next. Transmission slips on my new Titan. Dealer says it is normal. It is not normal. One by one, people began to share their stories. Michael listened to each one. He took notes on his phone. This was the real feedback he needed. Not filtered reports, not customer satisfaction scores. Real people with real problems. For 2 hours, Michael stood in the dealership listening to customer after customer. He heard about trucks that broke down, strange noises, parts that wore out too quickly, and promises that were never kept. He wrote everything down on his phone. Bill Thompson looked more and more worried as the stories piled up. This was not what he wanted people to hear about his dealership, but Michael needed to hear it all. "Thank you all for sharing your stories," Michael finally said to the crowd. "I promise you that things will change. American Motors will make this right." He turned to Bill. "Now I would like to see your service records. The real ones, not the cleaned-up reports you send to headquarters." Bill led Michael to his office. It was large with pictures of trucks on the walls. Awards for sales hung in frames, but there were no pictures of happy customers. "Mr. Reynolds, I hope you understand that every dealership has some unhappy customers," Bill said as he sat behind his desk. "It is just part of the business." Michael shook his head. "No, it is not. It is a sign that something is wrong. My father built this company on quality and trust. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that." Bill opened his computer and turned it to show Michael. "Here are the service records for the past 6 months. As you can see, most repairs are small things. Nothing major." Michael looked at the screen. The report showed hundreds of repairs. Many were marked as "no problem found," just like with Frank's truck. But Michael could see a pattern. The same issues kept coming up again and again. "This wiring harness problem," Michael pointed to the screen. "It shows up 50 times in the last month alone." "Yes, but headquarters said it was not a safety issue, so we were told to only fix it if customers complained more than once," Bill explained. Michael felt his anger rise. "Who told you that?" "It came from the regional manager. He said it was too expensive to fix all at once." Michael made a note on his phone. The regional manager would need to explain this decision. "What about these engine shutdowns?" Michael asked, pointing to another common problem. "That is harder to fix," Bill admitted. "Sometimes we cannot even find what is wrong. The computer shows no errors." Michael thought about what Frank had said. His engine just stopped with no warning. No error messages. How many other customers had the same problem? "I need to see the factory," Michael said suddenly. "Right now." Bill looked surprised. "The factory? It is an hour away. And it is Saturday." "I know where it is," Michael said. "And I do not care what day it is. This cannot wait." As they walked back to the main showroom, Michael saw Frank talking with Tony. The salesman was showing him a new truck, just as Michael had ordered. "Mr. Davis," Michael called, "how would you like to come to the factory with me? See how these trucks are made?" Frank looked surprised. "The factory? Why would I want to go there?" "Because I need someone who has experienced these problems firsthand. Someone who can tell the factory workers exactly what happens when a truck fails." Michael stepped closer. "Your voice needs to be heard by the people who build these trucks." Frank thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, if it helps fix the problem." "Bill, I am borrowing one of your trucks," Michael said. "We will bring it back later." Bill could only nod. No one said no to the CEO. Michael, Frank, and to everyone's surprise, Tony the salesman, all got into a new Titan X3. "Why are you coming?" Michael asked Tony as they pulled out of the lot. "I want to see how they are made too," Tony said, "so I can better explain to customers what makes our trucks different." Michael liked that answer. "Good. You can learn, and then you can teach other salespeople." As they drove toward the factory, Michael made a phone call. He needed the factory manager to meet them there. He also called his assistant to gather the executive team for an emergency meeting on Monday. "Is this really going to make a difference?" Frank asked after Michael finished his calls. "One visit to the factory." "It is just the start," Michael promised. "By this time next week, every person in the company will know that quality comes first. No exceptions." The factory came into view on the horizon. Huge buildings with the American Motors logo on top. Smoke rising from stacks. It was where everything began. And now, Michael hoped, it was where things would begin to change. The factory was huge. Tall buildings made of metal spread out over many acres. Trucks in different stages of being built moved along assembly lines. Workers in uniforms moved quickly, adding parts as trucks passed by. Michael parked near the main entrance, As they got out of the truck, a nervous-looking man hurried toward them. "Mr. Reynolds," the man said, "this is quite a surprise. We were not expecting you today." "That is the point, Jim," Michael said. "I wanted to see the factory as it really is, not cleaned up for a visit." He turned to his companions. "This is Jim Parker, our factory manager. Jim, this is Frank Davis, a customer who has had serious problems with his Titan X3. And this is Tony, a salesman from Big Country Trucks." Jim shook hands with both men, but he looked worried. "I want to see the production line for the Titan X3, Michael said. "The exact spot where the wiring harness is installed." Jim led them through the factory doors. Inside, it was loud. Machines hummed and clanged. Workers called to each other over the noise. The air smelled like metal and oil. "This way," Jim shouted over the noise. He led them along a marked path on the floor. Yellow lines showed where it was safe to walk. Michael watched everything as they walked. He saw workers moving quickly, almost running to keep up with the line. Some stations had only one person where there used to be two. Everyone looked tired. They stopped at a section where trucks were getting their electrical systems. A young woman was connecting wires inside the engine area. Her hands moved fast, but Michael could see she looked stressed. "This is where the main wiring harness goes in," Jim explained. "Each truck gets about 4 minutes at this station." 4 minutes. Michael was shocked. It used to be 10 minutes per truck at this station. Jim looked down at his shoes. The production schedule was increased last year. We had to speed up all stations. "On whose orders?" Michael asked, even though he already knew the answer. "It came from headquarters." "From your office, sir." Frank stepped forward to look at the trucks. "So you are saying these workers have less than half the time they used to have to do the same job?" Jim nodded. "We have tried to make it work. Added the second shift. But it is hard to find skilled workers." Michael watched as the woman at the station struggled to connect all the wires before the truck moved on. She barely finished in time. "Excuse me," Frank called to the woman. "Can I ask you something?" The woman looked up, surprised to see strangers on the line. Jim nodded that it was okay to talk. "Do you ever have to rush so much that you might miss something?" Frank asked. The woman looked at Jim, clearly afraid to answer honestly. "It is okay," Michael said. "No one will get in trouble for telling the truth." "Sometimes," the woman admitted. "Sometimes the line moves too fast, and we have to hurry. It is easy to miss a connection or leave something loose." Frank turned to Michael. "That explains a lot." Michael agreed. His push for more production had forced workers to rush. Quality was suffering because people did not have enough time to do their jobs right. "Jim, I want the line slowed down," Michael said firmly. "Right now. Cut the speed in half." Jim looked shocked. "But sir, our production targets. We will miss them." "I do not care about production targets right now," Michael said. "I care about making trucks that work properly." He walked over to a control panel and pointed. "Slow it down. Now." Jim reluctantly adjusted some settings. Around them, the line visibly slowed. Workers looked up in surprise. "Attention everyone," Michael said loudly. Several workers turned to look. "I am Michael Reynolds, CEO of American Motors. From this moment on, quality comes before quantity. Take the time you need to do your jobs right." A murmur went through the factory as workers shared the news. Some looked relieved. Others looked worried, as if this might be a trick. "Sir," Jim said quietly, "the board will not be happy about this. Production numbers will drop by half." "Let me worry about the board," Michael said. He walked down the line, stopping to talk with workers. He asked about their jobs, their challenges, and what they needed to do better work. Most were surprised that the CEO wanted their opinions. An older worker named Carl had been with the company for 30 years. He had worked under Michael's father. "Things used to be different," Carl told Michael. "Your father would come to the line and tell us that our work mattered. That each truck had our name on it, even if people could not see it. He made us proud of what we built. Michael felt those words deep in his heart. His father had understood something that Michael had forgotten. Trucks were not just numbers on a report. They were the work of human hands. They carried the pride of the people who built them. "I remember those days," Michael said. "And I promise you, Carl, those days are coming back." Monday morning came with dark clouds and rain. Michael sat in his large office at American Motors headquarters. Outside his window, he could see the test track where new truck models were driven to check for problems. On his desk sat the notes he had taken at the dealership and factory. Next to them was a report about customer complaints that his assistant had gathered over the weekend. The numbers were worse than he had feared. A knock at the door pulled Michael from his thoughts. His executive team filed in, led by Sarah from marketing. They all looked nervous. "Thank you for coming on short notice," Michael said. "Please sit down." The team took seats around the large table. There were 10 of them. Each ran a different part of the company: finance, production, sales, engineering, and more. "I spent Saturday as a regular customer," Michael began. He told them about his visit to the dealership and what he had learned. Then he described the factory tour and his decision to slow down production. "The board chairman called me yesterday," said Tom from finance. "He is not happy about slowing the line. Says we will miss our targets." "I know," Michael said. "I spoke with him too. I told him we have a bigger problem than missing targets. We have lost sight of who we are as a company." Michael stood up and walked to a picture on the wall. It showed his father standing next to the first truck American Motors had ever made. "My father built this company on a simple idea: make trucks that last. Make trucks that people can trust. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that." "But the market demands growth," Sarah argued. "Our competitors release new models every year. We have to keep up." "At what cost?" Michael asked. "We are making trucks that break down. We are losing the trust of customers who have been with us for generations." He handed out copies of the customer complaint report. "Read this. These are real people with real problems. Problems we caused by rushing production and cutting corners." The room was quiet as everyone read. Michael could see the shock on their faces as they saw the true numbers for the first time. "Why have we not seen these reports before?" asked James from engineering. "Because we created a system that hides bad news," Michael answered. "Regional managers filter complaints before they reach us. Dealerships are told to mark problems as normal wear and tear. We set up the whole company to tell us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear." No one argued with this. They knew it was true. "So what do we do?" asked Lisa from production. Michael handed out another document. This one was titled "The Road Back." "This is my plan," he said. "First, we recall every Titan X3 made in the last year. We fix the wiring harness and any other problems, free of charge." "That will cost millions," Tom warned. "Yes, it will," Michael agreed. "And it is just the start. Second, we keep the production line at the slower speed. Quality comes before quantity. Third, we double the size of our customer service team and give them real power to solve problems." The team looked at the rest of the list. There were 10 points in all. Each one meant big changes. "This plan will erase our profits for the year," Tom said, shaking his head. "Maybe," Michael agreed, "but it will save the company in the long run. We can survive a bad quarter or even a bad year. We cannot survive losing our customers' trust forever." There were more questions, more concerns. The meeting lasted 3 hours. But in the end, everyone agreed to support the plan. As the team filed out, Sarah stayed behind. "There is just one problem we have not addressed," she said. "The board might not support this plan. They could even replace you as CEO." Michael nodded. "I know. That is why I have one more meeting today, with someone who might be able to help us convince the board." After Sarah left, Michael's assistant showed in his next visitor. Frank Davis walked into the office, looking around at the fancy room with wide eyes. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Davis," Michael said, shaking his hand. "I need your help with something important." Frank sat down. "I still cannot believe the CEO of American Motors wants my help. What can I do?" "Tomorrow I have to present my plan to the board of directors," Michael explained. "They are worried about money and stock prices. I need them to hear from a real customer, someone who can tell them what happens when we put profits ahead of people." Frank thought for a moment. "So you want me to tell them about my truck problems?" "Yes," Michael said. "But more than that, I want you to tell them what it meant to you as a customer, how it affected your trust in our company." Frank nodded slowly. "I can do that. My dad always said American Motors trucks were the best. I believed that my whole life. Then my truck kept breaking down, and no one seemed to care. That hurt more than the mechanical problems." "That is exactly what the board needs to hear," Michael said. "Will you tell them your story?" "Yes," Frank agreed, "if it helps make sure other people do not go through what I did." Michael smiled for the first time that day. "Thank you. And your new truck is ready. Top-of-the-line Titan X3, with every part personally checked by our best technicians." "I appreciate that," Frank said. "But you know what would mean even more? If every truck that left your factory was checked that carefully, not just the one for the customer who met the CEO." Michael nodded. "You are absolutely right. And that is exactly what we are going to do from now on." 1 year later, Michael stood on the factory floor. The assembly line moved at a steady pace. Not too fast, not too slow. Just right for workers to do their jobs properly. Workers smiled and waved as he walked by. They knew him now. He visited every month, not just for scheduled tours, but for surprise visits too. He wanted to see the real factory, not a version cleaned up for the boss. Jim Parker walked beside him, pointing out the changes they had made. "The new quality check station has caught 98% of problems before trucks leave the factory," Jim said proudly. "Returns are down by 70%. Michael nodded. "And how are the workers doing with the new schedule?" "Much better," Jim said. "Sick days are down. People are not as tired, and they take pride in their work again." They stopped at the wiring harness station. The same woman Michael had met a year ago was still there, but now she had an assistant, and the station had better tools. "Hello, Maria," Michael greeted her. "How are things going?" Maria smiled. "Much better, Mr. Reynolds. We have time to do the job right now. And look." She pointed to a small metal tag inside the engine compartment. It had her name on it. Just like in the old days, every truck has the name of the person who worked on it. This had been Carl's idea, brought back from the time of Michael's father. Each worker put their name on the part of the truck they built. It was a mark of pride and responsibility. "The board meeting is this afternoon," Jim reminded Michael. "Are you ready for it?" "More than ready," Michael said. "I have the numbers to back up our changes." The past year had not been easy. The recall had cost millions. Slowing production had meant fewer trucks sold. For 2 quarters, the company had posted a loss instead of a profit. Some board members had called for Michael to be replaced. But Michael had stood firm, and Frank Davis had helped. Frank's speech to the board had moved even the most profit-focused members. He spoke about his father and grandfather buying American Motors trucks, about trust built over generations and then lost, and about how the company had a chance to make things right. The board had given Michael 1 year to prove his plan would work. Today was the day he would show them the results. Back in his office, Michael prepared his presentation. The third quarter numbers had just come in. They told a clear story. Sales were climbing again. Slowly but steadily. Warranty claims were down. Customer satisfaction scores were the highest they had been in 5 years. The company had returned to profitability, smaller but stronger. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His assistant showed in a visitor. It was Tony, the salesman from Big Country Trucks. "Tony," Michael said with surprise. "What brings you here?" Tony smiled. "I wanted to deliver the good news in person. Big Country Trucks just had its best month ever. After meeting Michael, Tony had asked for a job at headquarters. Now he ran a new department that worked directly with dealerships to improve the customer experience. People are coming back to American Motors, Tony continued. They heard about the changes we made, the recalls, the quality improvements, the new warranty program. They see we are serious about making things right. That is great news, Michael said. Any specific stories I can share with the board? Actually, yes. Tony handed him a letter. This came from a customer yesterday. Michael opened the letter and read it. It was from a young man who had just bought his first truck. My dad told me to buy an American Motors truck, the letter said. He said the company had some problems but fixed them. He said they make trucks the right way again, trucks that last. So I saved up and bought my first Titan. I love it. Thank you for making a truck I can trust. Who is the customer? Michael asked. Frank Davis Jr., Tony said. Frank's son, the one he was saving up to help buy a truck. Michael felt a lump in his throat. Frank had kept his promise to help his son buy a truck, and he had recommended American Motors despite his bad experience. That was the ultimate sign of restored trust. The board meeting went better than Michael could have hoped. The numbers told part of the story, but letters like the one from Frank's son told the rest. The board voted unanimously to continue Michael's plan. After the meeting, Michael drove to a small house on the edge of town. Frank Davis was in his driveway, washing his truck. The new Titan X3 gleamed in the sunlight. How is it running? Michael asked as he got out of his car. Frank smiled. Perfect, not a single problem. I heard your son bought a Titan too, Michael said. He did, Frank nodded. I was not sure at first, but you kept your word. You fixed the problems, made things right. So I told him he could trust American Motors again. That means a lot, Michael said. More than you know. They talked for a while about trucks, about work, about family. As Michael prepared to leave, Frank said something that stayed with him. You know what my father used to say about trucks? He said a good truck is like a promise. It says I will be there when you need me. I will not let you down. Frank patted the hood of his Titan. Feels good to drive a promise again. On his way back to the office, Michael drove past the factory. The American Motors sign stood tall against the sky. Below it, his father's old slogan had been brought back. American Motors, built to last, built on trust. The trucks rolling off the line were not just metal and engines. They were promises, and Michael was determined to keep those promises, one truck at a time.